Peace. You are tuned into Edible Activists with your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. On this show, we honor Black people and their stories in food and agriculture, celebrating legacy, traditions, contributions, and creativity that all stem from the land. So tune in and let's get started. Peace. I am your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. Today's guest is an Afro-Caribbean food systems leader, urban farmer, and land steward who is growing more than crops. She is rooting her community back into the land, the food, and the traditions that have always sustained us. DeVonne Jackson Perez is the founder of Good Ground Farm, growing Caribbean and Afro-diaspora crops for communities in Brooklyn and beyond. And she is also the director of partnerships at Brooklyn Supported Agriculture. Welcome to Edible Activist, DeVonne. I'm so pleased.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa. Excited to talk to you today.
Yes, I met you for the first time in person a few weeks ago. Again, highlighting post Black Women in Food Conference, but we've had a chance to talk briefly because I had Chef Moo from Brooklyn Supported Agriculture on the show. So it has been such an honor to be able to have these connection points with you and then bring you on to talk about your story.
Yeah, it's an honor. And I listened to Chef Moo's episode a couple of times, and there's just so many gems. And I'm excited to continue the conversation.
Absolutely. So DeVonne, my guests know this. We love a good origin story. We love for folks to take us back, right? Because what folks see is like, there's always something that happened that led up to where they are, you know? And so I want you to take us back to the beginning. Not even the farm, the nonprofit, or maybe it was the farm, but, you know, back to the very beginning steps of who you were before this work found you or you found the work. And what was the moment that changed the direction of everything?
Yeah, okay, we going back. Have to start from childhood. I was a child who preferred being outside with my father in the garden, growing peppers and tomatoes and getting dirty, collecting worms, bringing them in the house, trying to study them and keep them as pets. And I put them in a mason jar and they would die. I was just that kid. And then in high school, I enrolled in forensics, a class that I enjoyed so heavily, and it was taught by a Black woman. And I was just inspired to then enter college with an intended BA in forensic entomology, which is a science that studies insects and arthropods, their life cycle, their genetics. And essentially, you would study those near or on a decaying body at a crime scene to use those as legal evidence, or to help understand the cause of death. So I believed as a child, and still, that insects are so fascinating. They outnumber humans by far. So I've always been a bit of an environmentalist, you can say. And food, the overlap of food has always been a cornerstone of what family was to me, what family means to me. My home was the Jamaican and Puerto Rican household where everyone came by for a meal, whether it was a holiday, the weekends, or just stop by just 'cause to laugh, vent, and they knew that they would get a plate of food. My parentals always, which is something I aspired to do, always had a meal ready, whether it was in the freezer, in the fridge, just something ready to be able to feed folks, or something that they could whip up really quickly. And my mother was a stickler around never wasting. Call it her Jamaican roots, call it finding a use for everything and a need for everything. But she would even recite, you can have as much as you want, but don't waste what you take. Literally, right after she would bless the food, she would say this, no matter if it was just myself, my father, my two sisters, or this was a room full of people and family members. You can have as much as you want, but do not waste what you take. So food was always that opportunity for us to get together on like a cultural human opportunity. But then on the science and nutritional side of things, I've seen food and nutritional changes strengthen my family members who struggled with diabetes, and they played a crucial role in managing the sickle cell disease, which runs in my family. I do have the trait. And for those who don't know, sickle cell disease is an inherited blood disease that causes our blood to be crescent shaped, sickle shape, hence the name, and that restricts blood flow and getting oxygen to our blood. And many of my cousins have the full blown disease and have passed away. Rest in power. And I also have the trait. So like food and nutrition and environmentalism has always been kind of wrapped up in this pretty bow that were around me, but not necessarily, I didn't put a finger on it at that time. Fast forward a bit, I went to college. I earned a master's in communications, which led me to 10 years in television production, television, digital, and international TV production. But after years in the limelight, I felt very disconnected to the work I was producing, the time that I was giving to it. Uh, Production hour. I know we love to watch these shows, but we don't know the amount of production hours, the calls, the meetings, the running after talent, just like all that it takes of you. It was exhausting. I loved the red carpets and the award shows, but it was quite exhausting, and I was no longer connected. So January 2020, excuse me, no, this was around fall 2019. I took a farm manager job at a local farm in Brooklyn, which is where I currently live. And they wanted someone who was good at community organizing, developing partnerships, and having events on the farm, and do a little bit of like volunteer management. So I was like, God, if this is the work that you want me to do, it's closer to home. I'll be outside and enjoying just a different space other than this corporate space that at times felt suffocating. If this is for me, then show me and I'm out. So that was like fall 19, maybe around like September, October. And March 4th, I'll never forget it. It was a Tuesday morning, 2020. I left my job. And 7 days after, literally on March 11th, I think at that time, the pandemic was announced. And I had left my salaried job to become an urban farmer. And I've never looked back. It was a bit rocky, but I never looked back. And now, fall 2025, last fall, 5 years later, my partner and our family bought a 17-acre farm, and now we're rural farmers.
I love these beautiful origin stories. You were getting your fingernails dirty. You were bringing home your pet worms to your family, naming them probably.
Right.
I'm sure there were some fireflies in the midst of your outdoor experiences, just like mine, slicing open insects, studying forensics. Oh my goodness. It is just amazing to go back to your youth and just think about how grounded we were unintentionally if you had that experience and that opportunity to be grounded in the outdoors, because that's all we had, for the most part. We were kind of in that era of the Sega Genesis and the Super Mario Brothers, which I enjoyed playing, but it was outside all day. So I believe that everything is divine. So I love this journey for you. And as we speak about, like, continue our conversation around the farm that you and your partner have founded, let's talk about good ground and tell us more. Rural farmers, rural, made that very
Yes,
clear. Rural farming.
rural. Yeah, I echo all the things that you said, and it's true. We didn't want to come inside, right? And if you did come inside too many times, you had to stay inside. But we were outside till the lights came on, and that was just something that was a part of our culture. And I hope in the future I can bring that to my children and family as well. But before I talk about kind of today, or 2025 Good Ground Farm, and what you might have seen on Instagram, I want to go back to kind of the end of that story, right? So 2020, I left work, and maybe at the top of 21, we realized that it was a special time because everyone had a new interest in food culture, agriculture, cooking and baking culture, right? I don't know if you were one of those making banana bread, but my partner, who is a reverend and at the time was working remotely in tech, we already were like started an illegal fire escape garden in Brooklyn that was right outside of our window. We were growing a lot of leafy greens, tomatoes, herbs, and it was fulfilling us, right? By no means was it an acre. By no means did it replace our grocery list, but we saw this as an opportunity and time to grow for ourselves, but also share the knowledge of what small scale growing could do for others. So what we began was to build and teach our community on how to grow food, no matter the space you had. So it could have been a fire escape, a porch, a windowsill, a backyard, and then to encourage and let them know that it was all good ground, no matter where you grew. And so that was where the name came from. And we did that from 2021 to 2023, building, installing gardens, not only like buying the lumber, nuts and bolts, to also planting soil, helping them understand crop planting, companion planting, all of those things for local homeowners, schools, and friends. We ended up even having a partnership with Home Depot for a very large project that we did out for a high school in Queens. So once access to land did become available, in 2025, Good Ground Farm became what we know it as today. Um, and what I like to say, it's like a living argument that Black people are akin to land, not just as laborers, not just as workers, but owners, stewards, and decision makers. So, I want to give love to my partner's mother and her father because, it was purchased and it currently is stewarded as a family. Without them, we wouldn't have it. But we are on 17 acres in Washington County, which is about 4 hours from New York City, an hour above Albany for those who know New York State. And up here, historically, Black folks and in the city have had relationships to land and homes interrupted, right? Uh, there's home grabbing now in the city, and it's always through violence and disposition and policies that make it easier to take land from us than to pass it on to us. So when we grow our heritage crops here, we're not just growing callaloo and peppers and herbs. We like to say that we're growing repair. Um, we're growing deeper memory, and we're growing, cultural preservation.
Good ground. Thank you for taking me back just a bit to spring forward to good ground. Like I just had to land there for a moment. It's all good ground. New York City is, first of all, one of my favorite places in the world. And it's just such a great example of that you can grow in just about any space. Because obviously, we know New York City is constrained by size of apartments and space. Well, not constrained because y'all can do a lot. So let me rephrase that. But there are some challenges in terms of spacing in New York City. I get questions all the time, especially from my friends who have apartments and like, Melissa, I want to grow, but like, how do I grow? I'm like, folks are growing in their windowsills. So it takes some education, it takes some learning and some seeing and some help to be able to make that transition. But I again thank you for bringing us back because that was just super powerful in that moment. Fire escapes, which I never even thought about, to be truthfully honest.
Yeah,
And
they're
like,
legal, but they gotta find you.
yeah,
So in the meantime, between time, go ahead and grow some spinach and some leafy greens and what you can to sustain because we have a right to eat healthy, right? And we don't, especially in the city, it's so hard to have any full space. There are community gardens, and I'm a proponent of people joining them. We have hundreds of them across all boroughs. But in the meantime, if you don't feel like you have the time or you can't find one near to you, grow where you can. If that's the windowsill, grow what you eat, grow what you can.
grow what you can. I know that's right. So, a little bit more about Good Ground in terms of where it's located. And what I've learned and what I want to talk a little bit more through, Devon, is that where Good Ground is located in Argyle, it's a town that's covered under the right to farm law that legally protects and prioritizes agriculture as an essential industry. What does it mean to have that kind of legal protection behind your work, and how does that shape what's possible for Good Ground?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful right. We did not know that prior to purchase, but had learned that in the process. So yeah, in Argyle, New York, the right to farm laws protect farmers from being sued or displaced for things like noise or dust or odors, even that are standard byproducts of farming practices. And it encourages not only agriculture as a practice, but real estate developers have to inform and notify any current buyers, potential buyers of the area that they're moving into. This is an active farm area. Act like you know, essentially. So while we are super grateful for the town's focus on this, and we see that in that there's a deep future for Good Ground here and even expand here, what comes up in my like chest is that these laws protect the agriculture activities, right? And like the developmental pressure, but the question still for me is who actually has the right to farm, right? Because a right to farm on paper means very little if the land itself is inaccessible, unaffordable, or concentrated in the hands of just a handful of people. And grateful for our family that we were able to do this collectively. But, the right to farm doesn't mean much if people don't have a right to land.
That's a statement indeed. Absolutely. Absolutely. What was the process for securing the 17 acres of land?
Yeah, so my mother-in-law, we were all looking for property upstate New York. She lives about an hour away from here, but still wanted something a bit on the countryside of things. She's still a bit in the city. And we found it on Zillow. We looked at it, kind of circled it in the group chat to see if it was something that we all felt aligned with the area, with the properties that are on the land because it does have high tunnels, which is what we grow in, but it also has a house structure. So we kind of all discussed it. Family was able to visit and meet the farmers at the time that were here. We bought it from farmers, so everything was really turnkey. And I think that also makes a difference in terms of a purchase, right? Like, are we starting from ground zero? Do we have to navigate water, electricity, etc.? Or do we kind of have a good starting point? And we did. So I know those folks. There, it takes a long time to find land and property and homes, but believe it or not, it was a really quick process, and we found it on Zillow. And to me, that too felt aligning by God. Like, okay, we found this thing, we met the previous owners, it felt good. Um, Currently, this area is an all white town. There's only one other Black person. She is also a farmer. Her farm is called Blackyard Farm. She has about 60 to 80 acres, not too far from here. But she is the only other Black person. We are the only Black family that lives up here. So that also comes with its challenges. And it's funny because when we first got up here last year, there were Trump signs everywhere. And I mean, flags, bumper stickers, all the things. And now, just a year later, they are nowhere to be found, which means everyone's pissed off. But it comes with its own unique community, which is why we are grateful for that other farmer that is here. We do keep our head on a swivel, even though we don't feel like we need to. It does feel like community here. I think everyone respects the farm and agricultural work that's done here. And again, because through the work that I do down in the city, there's still like this distribution lines that we grow up here, but we distribute down in the city. So we feel like a part of this larger ecosystem of Black farmers that exists in New York State. So we don't feel alone.
Thank you for providing some of the landscape of Argyle. I can't help but state that a little bit of the contradiction that was running through my mind around the question that I asked around the right to farm, and then you posing like the counter question of like, there's still this question about like who can get access to the land so that they have the right to farm. So interesting dynamics. I'm glad y'all have your head on the swivel, but I'm also I love this story because it is inspiration. Because we hear so many, and this is true. There's so many stories of Black people and their pursuit to secure land, and it is so challenging. I love this story because it just speaks to it's inspiring that it doesn't like someone else's story doesn't have to be your story, and that like this could be you, but this was all divine and has aligned beautifully for you and your family, and I love that so much. I do.
Thank you. And I think that right now is the time for farmers, young women, queer, Black farmers to really dive in. We were able to get this from a previous farmer, but there are also white farmers and Black farmers that are aging out, right? We know that the average age of a farmer is in their mid 60s. Many of those folks have children and grandchildren who have no interest in getting on the land, being farmers. Like right now is the time for everyone who is interested, especially Black folks, people of color, Indigenous folks, Latinx folks, to get on the land, meet some of these elder farmers, talk to them, sit with them. They're not just going to give up their land to anyone, but you don't want those properties, to be lost in either data centers or whatever else that may come, a skyscraper, whatever else that may come for people who don't have the right intentions for the earth. So I think now is a great opportunity for people to build those relationships, intergenerational relationships, to sit with elders, see what they need, see what they're concerned about in terms of the future of their property, in a way that we could potentially be given that torch and carry on what the journey is of the land.
What are we growing at Good Ground, DeVonne?
Yeah, callaloo. As mentioned, I'm Jamaican. It's a leafy green. The scientific name is amaranth. It's a leafy green, similar. Some folks describe it as close to spinach. We have varieties of peppers. We have aji dulce. We have Carolina Reapers, Scotch bonnet, poblanos, a lot of cultural and heritage crops that unfortunately I can't find, and many of my community members can't find in Brooklyn. We have beans, pink eye beans. Most people only know black eye beans, but there's a sister and they're equally nutrient. Carrots, herbs of all kinds. It's really exciting to be growing in our high tunnel. We have a 25 by 96-foot high tunnel that we cultivate in, which is great because high tunnels are able to extend our winter season growing in the north. So it is heated by fuel. So that we will begin heating it towards the end of the year, maybe like November, December, but throughout the summer, it is Right now it's 90 degrees in there, so it's great to be able to grow a lot of those tropical cultural crops that are used to that type of climate.
That is incredible. Can we go back to, you said pink eye beans, DeVonne? Is that what I heard?
That is.
I need to get my
Yes.
hands on those. I need a photo. I need a taste. I'm the black eyed pea poster child. So I'm the all the peas poster child, like all the peas, all the beans. Never heard. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
they're beautiful. I received them from a black-owned seed collector called the Okra Lady. We buy a majority of our seeds from black-owned seed farmers as well. But you might know them as maybe purple hull peas.
I do. Okay.
Um,
I there was another name for them. I love
yes,
purple whole peas. Okay.
yes. And they're like in the family of they're cousins to the black eyed pea and the cow pea, which is in southern cuisine. My partner is from the south. Her elders are from the south. So we tie in a lot of my Caribbean culture to her southern culture, and we focus on those crops that we don't often have access to, but also we hold importance for preservation.
What a beautiful, beautiful and cultural blend. Oh my gosh. I just see myself, I'm dancing on my way up to upstate New York. I'm dancing. Got the South, got the Caribbean, oh my gosh, I'm excited. I'm not even there, y'all. I'm back home. I am so excited about this.
Get your
DeVonne,
ticket.
listen,
Come
I,
visit.
I'm there. Oh, this is so exciting. DeVonne, we know with good ground, there's no good ground without good soil. Soil holds so much in memory and it's spiritual. How do you think about your relationship with soil, the soil that you tend, and what has it taught you?
Ooh, the soil is the greatest teacher, Melissa, because, soil doesn't respond to our schedule or urgency or anything that you may, as the farmer or land steward, have in mind. But on the flip side of it, it also, it lacks judgment. It gives grace while, as the farmer, listen and learn. It teaches reciprocity here. Last year, we were coming upstate from Brooklyn, maybe half the week. So Sunday to about Tuesday, we would be in the city. Tuesday, we would drive up. Wednesday to Saturday, and back down on Sunday morning when my partner had to be at church. So that was taxing, as you can imagine. We did that for the entire season, back and forth, back and forth. And it was taxing for us on our energy, but there were also so many things happening with our crops. Things weren't growing, our irrigation system wasn't watering well. There were so many just like challenges that occurred. There are things that did grow, but we knew that the soil needed more attention from us. And we couldn't constantly extract from it, right? Because eventually it'll just stop giving. It'll stop giving. And I think that that's true to land. I think that that's true to communities, relationships, and ourselves. The soil, reminds us that transformation is invisible. I think you would kind of spoke to this too in terms of the origin story of things. I think that that's the same for soil. It's like everything is invisible until it's visible, right? How you see me today, you just see me as a farmer. But all the other backstory was invisible until we now have had this conversation. And I think that that happens in the soil as well. Like the most important work is happening in the soil. When we came up here, we had to test it. We realized the nutrients that it lacked, and where it was deficiencies, we got compost, local compost, to make sure that there were local nutrients going back into the soil. But most of the important work is happening underground, what you can't see, right? Like the roots expanding, the insects, which I love so much, collaborating with us, that compost from the local dairy farmer breaking down. So soil has taught like nothing, none of it looks impressive until it suddenly does. So I just am grateful that soil is forgiving. Soil is forgiving, And if you keep giving back, then it'll continue to give to you.
Soil is the greatest teacher. Soil is forgiving reciprocity. I love that. The microbes having their own little party underground
Yes.
to feed us good food. I love it. I'm a soil nerd. I swear I am. I love soil, microbes, all the things. We're gonna switch gears
Yeah.
just a bit because we gotta touch on your work with Brooklyn Supported Agriculture, which, shout out, still celebrating the 10 years. And as the director of partnerships there, DeVonne, how does that role connect to and amplify what Good Ground is doing?
Thank you. Yes, 10 years is a big deal for any business, especially a Black owned one in New York City, especially in this food work, so many levels. As the director of partnerships at Brooklyn Supported Agriculture, which we call BSA, I often joke and say that, pulling from my past career, that I'm the like executive producer of a food system that doesn't exist yet. So it's like my job is to bring together farmers, institutions, nonprofits, community organizations, funders, policymakers to kind of develop a cast, right? Cast and crew, um, to help build a more just food future, food system. And while it is I believe, the only running Black led food distribution cooperative in New York, I think what's important is that we prioritize sourcing from BIPOC, queer, women, farmers. I think that's important because cooperatives ask a different question than like a traditional business would, right? It's not asking how much profit are we going to make. We're asking what's the community benefit. How can we share the ownership of this thing? Um, and we're small. I'm sure Chef Mustafa told you we're small, but a mighty team that moves thousands and thousands of bags and many pounds and pallets of food weekly throughout many of our partners. Steph and Sean are our co-founders. He does a lot of biz development stuff. Raina is our sourcing sorcerer. She's amazing. And then we have Chef Move, who does, as you learned, kind of like all the things. But his official, I guess, title or lane is the market manager. And they're also cool. I think that's the beauty of working at this cooperative. They're all cool as fuck. They all have full like creative lives outside of our work, right? Chefs, dancers, community organizers, musicians, and then kind of like when the clock strikes dawn, I guess when we start work, we all return to like our overalls and pumpkins for our community, but we do so many other things throughout, you know, the ecosystem of being an artist, being someone who is aware of people around us and care about the people and land around us. And I think that all of that works as a complement to Good Ground. Um, when we think about land access and like education, we're thinking about where there I think BSA is thinking about kind of like what happens. They care about the farmer, very farmer forward, and they also care about what happens after the harvest and also the well-being of the harvester, right? Like how does food move, who distributes it, etc. So one of the most exciting things is as I in one on one hat and with one hat, I'm developing a lane for markets and for farmers to have access to markets to make necessary money for them to continue their operation, gather resources and technical needs that they have, while also being the farmer that's walking down that lane that I am creating on one, through my 9 to 5. And we've been making a lot of ecosystem relationships that I'm excited about. We've partnered with huge institutions like Brooklyn Children's Museum, Makata, Bed-Stuy Strong, so many, and we work in lockstep with the Black farmer ecosystem, is which is made up of like Black Farmer Fund, Black Farmer United, so many Corbin Hill, Nefolk. There's just so many. And I'm a graduate of one of those programs as well called Farm School NYC. So it's a really beautiful synergy between fighting for the farmer and now becoming that farmer.
The hats that you wear, if you had to describe the food supply chain right now as it is, how would you describe it?
It lacks diversity. And I'm not just talking about racial diversity, which we all know and feel and understand, but it's really at every level. It's what we're grown. There's only a handful of commodity crops. You've ever gone to a store and looked at the seeds that were available for you to buy? They're the same, maybe 30, 40 seeds. Yet we are a culture of people with various seeds, various crops, various types of food that we eat. Then it's who's growing. We talked about this before. I want to say like 95% of U.S. farms are operated by white producers, and I think the lacking of diversity in what we grow and who grows it really affects us. I've been able to do some like international work. I just went to Trinidad recently and met some cacao farmers in Trinidad, and I learned that they produce so much cacao, but for centuries they've had to send it over to the UK for them to process it, for them to be able to sell it back, to buy it back from another country, when in fact they are the ones who grew it. And I think things like that. Farmers often receive pennies on their particular crops, while processors and distributors and others are the ones who are making the profit. So, food supply chain right now is lacking diversity.
When you went to Trinidad, did you connect with Alea Frazier, who's a cacao farmer? Does that name ring a bell?
No, I was with an organization called Collective Diaspora. They were the group that sent us to Trinidad, but the Trinidadian group there was called Chocolate Rebellion, a part of a cross Atlantic chocolate collective that is not only fighting to teach locals how to grow and process chocolate, but then help develop relationships with the global north. And we're at Brooklyn Supported Agriculture is actually looking forward to having some of their chocolate up in our retail space as well. So just strengthening those cross Atlantic conversations where we don't need the middleman.
Going back to all the hats that you've worn as we come to a close, Devon, your work runs deep. I mean, we need part two because I don't even think we scratched the surface to the ecosystem of all the things that you have touched in this food space and much more to come. But your work runs so deep from urban farming to land equity, community development. What do you feel like are some of the victories you're most proud of? Because we have to have a moment just to celebrate you, yourself, and what you've accomplished. I mean, we spoke to obviously some of the greatest things at the top of the show, and the wins that remind you why this work matters.
I did win the 40 under 40 in food policy from Hunter College in 2025. And that was very exciting because I had only been in the food space for at that point 5 years full time. But I think the greatest victories are the ones that, aren't on social media or won't get a like or a follow. They're the ones where, my friends will say, I went to the grocery store and I didn't throw out my scallions. I put them in a jar on my countertop and put water in them so they could regrow. Or when you're engaging with youth and they realize that, food doesn't come from a grocery store and you kind of like see the light bulb go off. Um, it's people getting exciting, the everyday person getting excited about where they get their food from, how they've utilized all of their food with zero waste, and just seeing families get access to food with dignity. We do many pop-ups around Brooklyn where we'll have our full table of fresh produce, shelf-stable items. Majority of them are BIPOC owned, so honey, granola, hot sauce, drinks from the Bronx, right? And people are like, what? It was made in the Bronx, or this was made by a Black woman. And you just immediately see the possibility, or you see the shift in, okay, maybe that person won't, haul their or overhaul their entire grocery process, right? But that they may be open to sourcing from us, buying from us, or going to their local farmers market, or switching out maybe what they currently buy, honey that they buy, to a local honey. And I think that helping someone see like farming or local sourcing not as like a symbol of oppression or something that we have to do, but as a pathway towards healing, towards potential entrepreneurship, to ownership. Those moments remind me of the systems. That system change is not abstract, that we're actually doing it in real time, making history in real time, for even if it's just like one person at a time.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful response, and just going back to the invisible. Most times it's the things that you don't see, or those small moments where someone might send you a note and it's not broadcasted to the world, that is a victory. And that is a huge reminder. DeVonne, we need a part two because I got so much more to ask you. You are just phenomenal, and I am inspired by all the things that you are currently doing and have done. So thank you for blessing the show with your voice and your beautiful story. And shout out to your partner and your partner's family, because we know that this is not a solo journey, and everyone who has walked with you to come this far. So just want to honor them as well. DeVonne, where can folks find you if they want to connect with you about Good Ground and all the things farming and equity and land equity, and just where can they hit you up at?
Yeah, all the things. You can follow me on Insta. You can follow the farm on Instagram at This Is Good Ground, spelled completely out. My personal Instagram is It's On with DeVonne. And the work of my food distribution co-op can be found at Brooklyn Supported Agriculture, spelled all the way out.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and peace.
Thank you for listening to Edible Activists. You can find today's episode on Spotify, iTunes, and Simplecast, and follow along on all social media platforms at Edible Activists for updates. Want to support this platform? You can do so by purchasing our commerce or connecting with me about media partnerships at www.edibleactivist.com. In the words of Baba Tariq Adunu, there is no culture without agriculture. Peace.